the feeling of another person, and it helps you build emotional connections with others. So this is coming under the emotional empathy. And when we look at this emotional empathy or the affective empathy, which are the important categories? There are two categories, that is empathic concern and personal distress. So what is coming under this empathic concern? That is compassionate empathy, which denotes that one moves from inactive state to an active state to help however we can. And next is the personal distress. The personal distress it refers to experiencing self-oriented feelings of anxiety or pain in response to another person's suffering. So here we are thinking about other person's suffering, and it may result in an egoistic reaction to another's suffering rather than a helpful reaction. So here in this personal distress, we can see that there is a danger that happens in this personal distress. That is, this may happen because of the interference of egocentricity. What is this egocentricity is that we may sometimes listening to another person's distress, we may say that I feel sorry about you, or I also undergo such type of an incident in my life. So what is happening is that there is always the egocentrism is coming. But in this way, we cannot take the case of this empathic situation. Empathy doesn't mean to share our plight to the other person. There comes the danger of selfhood. So here we should try to limit the process of selfhood in one's life. So that is an important thing where we have to remove this selfhood in before coming into another person's life. So this personal distress that is experiencing the self-oriented feelings of anxiety or pain, it should be removed. Otherwise, it may lead to this egoistic tendency among human beings. So at the moment that when we listen to others, we have to make ourselves or our mind as a tabula rasa, surrendering ourselves to the empathetic situation. We have to try to understand others in an empathetic way. So this is an important part in empathy. And coming to Goldman's classification of empathy, we can categorize it into three: cognitive empathy, emotional empathy, and compassionate empathy. Let me see what is this cognitive empathy mean. Cognitive empathy, it is attached to knowing what others feel and what they might be thinking. Second, emotional empathy, it is enacted to feel something along with others. Generally, in this classroom situation or in society, we may limit up to this cognitive empathy and emotional empathy. But there is a third part, that is compassionate empathy, which leads a person to understand others' feeling and offer help if it is necessity. So there is extending one's arms to others in times of crisis that comes in this compassionate empathy. Now let me see how does empathy work. In the working of empathy, the first part is the thinking process. In the first part, we start to think about ourselves, then we start to think about others' emotions. When we think about others' emotions, the next stage, the feeling aspects comes into it. And when we take the feeling aspects, then comes the acting aspect. The empathy is working is through the three process, that is thinking, feeling, and acting. And the next topic of processes of empathy, that is this cognitive awareness, emotional response, and compassionate response. These all things are coming under this processes of empathy. When coming to the next aspect, what is the relevance of empathy in classroom situation? you know that in classroom there may be the occurrence of different types of conflicts between the teacher and the student, and student with the peer group. So there will be different types of problem solving situation that a teacher has to face. So how do we listen at this time? How do we interact with students at this time? That is an important thing. And in this case, knowingly or unknowingly, empathy is playing a major role. How do we listen to students sharing of complaints? And how we can convince the students that an empathetic living together is needed in classroom. And we know that school is a minute representation of the larger community. So in this smaller community that is in school, we know that students are coming from diverse background. In this diverse background, everybody has to learn how to cope up with others. That there may be the language barriers, the religious barriers, so many adjustment has to make. In this case, how to develop empathy, whether empathy can be teach. That is another discussion that we need. Empathy can be teach. More than that, it can be taught. So here, how we can train students to develop empathy in their life. So there are different activities that we can give. The major thing that is reading. Read because reading in itself can make us more empathy. What to read? That different type of stories which help to build empathy. And after reading, we can share these ideas or share these books to connect us in new ways. And then with these ideas, one has to practice. That is to do these empathetic ideas into action and make a difference in our community. How can we effectively use empathy in everyday life? So, how to use empathy is that we have to put aside our own viewpoint and try to see things from other person's point of view. Then we have to validate the other person's perspective. Then coming to the next aspect, that examine our attitude. What type of attitude we are keeping? Are we always approaching others in a biased and judgmental way? So there is importance that we have to keep away from stereotypical thinking. And then we have to learn to listen carefully, which is discuss how to listen. That we have to listen with our ears, we have to listen with our eyes, we have to listen with our heart, and we have to listen with our instincts. Then in this, how to use empathy effectively is that we have to ask what the other person. But when we try to understand each other, there is a common space merging together where we call it as we. In that we space, there occurs this empathetic concern. And in classroom, as teachers, you may be thinking that what strategies can be stages of empathy building? The first stage, emotional reaction. Second one, role taking. Third, cognitive suspension. Let me go to little bit detail. What does these three stages of empathy building mean? Emotional reaction means that when we listen to others' plight, distress, some kind of emotional influence is happening in our mind, which is an unobservable state, and it is also immeasurable. But coming to the role taking, it involves the understanding of others' perception of the world through situational imagination. And the last stage, that is cognitive suspension, it refers to the process of getting rid of different socio-cultural beliefs so that people can nurture empathy non-judgmentally. So what is important in this perspective taking, or we can say that this cognitive suspension is an important thing. That's why for a teacher in a classroom, the teacher has some background, some racial thing or some interest, it is everything. But here, what is important is that first, the teacher should keep away from this stereotypical thinking or this bias and prejudices about a particular race or particular caste or particular status of economic level of people. With a tabula rasa mind only, the teacher has to deal with others' situations. So this cognitive suspension is an important aspect to deal in an empathetical way. And we can see that what are the other strategies that a teacher can use to develop empathy is that the storytelling. So based on the stories or the cases, the teacher can provide various cases in front of students. Based on the cases, or some audio clips can be shown or video clips can be shown and some kind of questions can be taken. That why do the characters behave in this particular way? What will be your reaction if you are in that place? So in that way, some reflective questions can be asked so that the students will get an opportunity to think a lot. And there is the need to create an environment for empathic listening. And the next one, that is work on communication strategies. Different types of communication strategies can be adopted. For that, as part of learning experiences, we can offer the students different collaborative group tasks. What are the collaborative group tasks that we can give? When we teach about a topic related with social science or humanities background, there we can take some particular concepts, we can link it with some kind of situation and give it to different groups so that they will think together. Or otherwise, we can give some kind of codes of empathy and tell each group to sit in different small circles so that in each circle they will have a leader, they will discuss, and after that, the leader of that learning circle can come and present and share their views. In this way, we can make the whole class to develop this empathy skill in their own life. And next, we can see that we can share values and differences. There may be difference of opinion among persons when they interact. And another strategy that a teacher can adopt in classroom is drama because it is a creative art where the characters, though they are fictitious characters, they learn how to behave or how to behave to others in a particular situation, and there through drama it communicates how this empathetic listening is possible. And otherwise, we can give some kind of contextual stimulation to students or case studies, such as some cases. Then we can prepare an empathy map and ask that what is how this character behave, how do you feel about that, then what is wrong in this, what is correct in that, how can we behave in an empathetical way in a particular situation, then the solutions can be taken from the students. So